causes. Science can say nothing about the supernatural. Whether God exists or not is a question about which science is neutral." End quote. This statement is stunning for its lack of candor. Of course, scientists live in perpetual fear of losing public funds, so the NAS may have merely been expressing raw terror of the tax-paying mob. The truth, however, is that the conflict between religion and science is unavoidable. The success of science often comes at the expense of religious dogma. The maintenance of religious dogma always comes at the expense of science. Our religions do not simply talk about a purpose for human existence. Like science, every religion makes specific claims about the way the world is. These claims purport to be about facts. The creator of the universe can hear and will occasionally answer your prayers. The soul enters the zygote at the moment of conception. If you do not believe the right things about God, you will suffer terribly after death. Such claims are intrinsically in conflict with the claims of science, because they are claims made on terrible evidence. In the broadest sense, science, from the Latin scire, to know, represents our best efforts to know what is true about our world. We need not distinguish between hard and soft science here, or between science and a branch of the humanities like history. It is a historical fact, for instance, that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Consequently, this fact forms part of the worldview of scientific rationality. Given the evidence that attests to this fact, anyone believing that it happened on another date, or that the Egyptians really dropped those bombs, has a lot of explaining to do. The core of science is not controlled experiment or mathematical modeling. It is intellectual honesty. It is time we acknowledged a basic feature of human discourse. When considering the truth of a proposition, one is either engaged in an honest appraisal of the evidence and logical arguments, or one isn't. Religion is the one area of our lives where people imagine that some other standard of intellectual integrity applies. Consider the recent deliberations of the Roman Catholic Church on the doctrine of limbo. 30 top theologians from around the world recently met at the Vatican to discuss the question of what happens to babies who die without having undergone the sacred rite of baptism. Since the Middle Ages, Catholics have believed that such babies go to a state of limbo, where they enjoy what St. Thomas Aquinas termed natural happiness forever. This was in contrast to the opinion of St. Augustine, who believed that these unlucky infant souls would spend eternity in hell. Though limbo had no real foundation in Scripture, and was never official church doctrine, it has been a major part of the Catholic tradition for centuries. In 1905, Pope Pius X appeared to fully endorse it. Children who die without baptism go into limbo, where they do not enjoy God, but they do not suffer either. Now, the great minds of the Church have convened to reconsider the matter. Can we even conceive of a project more intellectually forlorn than this? Just imagine what these deliberations must be like. Is there the slightest possibility that someone will present evidence indicating the eternal fate of unbaptized children after death? How can any educated person think this is anything but a hilarious, terrifying, and unconscionable waste of time? When one considers the fact that this is the very institution that has produced and sheltered an elite army of child molesters, the whole enterprise begins to exude a truly diabolical aura of misspent human energy. The conflict between science and religion is reducible to a simple fact of human cognition and discourse. Either a person has good reasons for what he believes, or he does not. If there were good reasons to believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, or that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse, these beliefs would necessarily form a part of our rational description of the universe. Everyone recognizes that to rely upon faith to decide specific questions of historical fact is ridiculous. That is, until the conversation turns to the origin of books like the Bible and the Quran, to the resurrection of Jesus, to Muhammad's conversation with the Archangel Gabriel, or to any other religious dogma. It is time that we admitted that faith is nothing more than the license religious people give one another to keep believing when reasons fail. While believing strongly without evidence is considered a mark of madness or stupidity in any other area of our lives, faith in God still holds immense prestige in our society. Religion is the one area of our discourse where it is considered noble to pretend to be certain about things no human being could possibly be certain about. It is telling that this aura of nobility extends only to those faiths that still have many subscribers. Anyone caught worshipping Poseidon, even at sea, will be thought insane. Truth be told, I now receive emails of protest from people who claim, in all apparent earnestness, to believe that Poseidon and other gods of Greek mythology are real. The fact of life. All complex life on Earth has developed from simpler life forms over billions of years. This is a fact that no longer admits of intelligent dispute. If you doubt that human beings evolved from prior species, you may as well doubt that the sun is a star. Granted, the sun doesn't seem like an ordinary star, but we know that it is a star that just happens to be relatively close to the Earth. Imagine your potential for embarrassment if your religious faith rested on the presumption that the sun was not a star at all. Imagine millions of Christians in the United States spending hundreds of millions of dollars each year to battle the godless astronomers and astrophysicists on this point. Imagine them working passionately to get their unfounded notions about the sun taught in our nation's schools. This is exactly the situation you are now in with respect to evolution. Christians who doubt the truth of evolution are apt to say things like, "Evolution is just a theory, not a fact." Such statements betray a serious misunderstanding of the way the term theory is used in scientific discourse. In science, facts must be explained with reference to other facts. These larger explanatory models are theories. Theories make predictions and can, in principle, be tested. The phrase, "the theory of evolution," does not in the least suggest that evolution is not a fact. One can speak about the germ theory of disease, or the theory of gravitation, without casting doubt upon disease or gravity as facts of nature. It is also worth noting that one can obtain a PhD in any branch of science for no other purpose than to make cynical use of scientific language in an effort to rationalize the glaring inadequacies of the Bible. A handful of Christians appear to have done this. Some have even obtained their degrees from reputable universities. No doubt others will follow in their footsteps. While such people are technically scientists, they are not behaving like scientists. They simply are not engaged in an honest inquiry into the nature of the universe, and their proclamations about God and the failures of Darwinism do not in the least signify that there is a legitimate scientific controversy about evolution. In 2005, a survey was conducted in 34 countries measuring the percentage of adults who accept evolution. The United States ranked 33rd, just above Turkey. Meanwhile, high school students in the United States test below those of every European and Asian nation in their understanding of science and math. These data are unequivocal. We are building a civilization of ignorance. Here's what we know. We know that the universe is far older than the Bible suggests. We know that all complex organisms on Earth, including ourselves, evolved from earlier organisms over the course of billions of years. The evidence for this is utterly overwhelming. There is no question that the diverse life we see around us is the expression of a genetic code written in the molecule DNA. That DNA undergoes chance mutations, and that some mutations increase an organism's odds of surviving and reproducing in a given environment. This process of mutation and natural selection has allowed isolated populations of individuals to interbreed, and over vast stretches of time, form new species. There is no question that human beings evolved from non-human ancestors in this way. We know from genetic evidence that we share an ancestor with apes and monkeys, and that this ancestor in turn shared an ancestor with the bats and the flying lemurs. There is a widely branching tree of life whose basic shape and character is now very well understood. Consequently, there is no reason whatsoever to believe that individual species were created in their present forms. How the process of evolution got started is still a mystery, but that does not in the least suggest that a deity is likely to be lurking at the bottom of it all. Any honest reading of the biblical account of creation suggests that God created all animals and plants as we now see them. Theologians who want to cast doubt upon the truth of evolution now advocate something called intelligent design, or ID. The problem with ID is that it is nothing more than a program of political and religious advocacy masquerading as science. Since a belief in the biblical God finds no support in our growing scientific understanding of the world, ID theorists invariably stake their claim on the areas of scientific ignorance. The argument for ID has proceeded on many fronts at once. Like countless theists before them, fanciers of ID regularly argue that the very fact that the universe exists proves the existence of God. The argument runs more or less like this. Everything that exists has a cause. Space and time exist. Space and time must, therefore, have been caused by something that stands out